Lovely. Diolch yn fawr iawn, Sophie. And could I say as well, Kyoko, it was extraordinary to hear your story. These, I think, for those of us who are politicians, those of us who engage with matters like this from day to day, we end up talking sometimes in abstract terms, and I'm afraid I may do that now. But it's the stories of what this does to people. That is what we have a duty to continue to pass on. We will, year on year, we hear the stories, utterly valid stories of veterans who fought in the armed forces, not so much now in the First World War, of course, but in the Second World War. There are veterans from all aspects of war, and we must make sure that all those voices are heard, because these are the powerful messages. And one of the things that I would want to say is how we build peace, how we build a narrative for peace is absolutely critical. So thank you very much, Sophie, and thank you very much, Belle, and I look forward to hearing the other speakers. As I said, my name is Liz Saville-Roberts. I'm the parliamentary leader of Plaid Cymru here, and we have in Wales a very long tradition of activism for peace. The Welsh Women's Peace Petition was signed by almost 400,000 women, and it's just over 100 years ago. It was 1923 when that happened. And we have the Temple of Peace in Cardiff, owned by a charity, the Welsh Centre for International Affairs, and a very strong Quaker tradition, actually quite much of it based in my office town of Dolgella. I went to Philadelphia. So there is this non-conformism, questioning, and that is part of our tradition as a party. And we have, of course, consistently opposed nuclear weapons, from the advent of the nuclear bomb, a tragedy in itself, to Polaris and then Trident. We will oppose Dreadnought and any other nuclear weapon system that is proposed in future. And I'm also proud to say that my Senedd member partner in the constituency of Dwyfor Meirionnydd, Mabon ap Gwynfor, is the chair of CND, Cymru CND in Wales. So the reasons for the party's point of view, I've already mentioned the long-established principles of opposing the assumption of the primacy of military action. That is an underlying question. Quite actually interesting to be in this committee room, because we haven't got a celebration of militarism quite being rammed down our throats as it is in some of the other rooms. The stories, the pictures that this place puts on the wall are very much, the walls are very much the norms that we are being told to assume, that this is what we celebrate. This is the sort of history, the imperial history, the military history, the empire itself. This is what this place is continuously reminding ourselves of. We believe as a party that peace should be funded and actively promoted, not as an alternative to warfare, but as essential to world security. Again, we need to build peace. It needs to be a conscious action. And that actually, you question so much of what underlines the principles of this place and much of Western democracy. The concept of mutually assured destruction, the second point this is now as to our reasons, as a form of peace insurance policy, it's intrinsically flawed. As soon as you say it, you can see that it's intrinsically flawed. And of course, we now have the added risks of proliferation. I think we were even talking about whether Israel had the bomb back in the 1960s, and we're talking in the same sort of language now. And of course, the risks of aging weaponry and into whose hands its constituent parts fall. This is a sense, the sense alongside that of the, and we heard this from Kyoko, the mass and untargeted destruction of whole populations. There is nothing in international law, which we must always come back to, which can tolerate that. Let us question that again and again and again. And the cost of nuclear weapons and their associated systems, Trident's £200 billion for the whole of its 30-year lifespan, the costs of that, and the fact that the Secretary of State for Defence earlier this year talked about $9 billion for the nuclear submarines. Again, these extraordinary sums at the same time when we can't find, this is a government that is trying to find reasons not to give money to disabled people, not to fund more than 2 children in poor families. this is what we're being told to assume. And even if acknowledging in part the convention that national security is dependent on military capacity, then the argument that whether weaponry designed in response to what were then perceived as the requirements of the Cold War remains suitable 75 years later is something, again, almost these are run-of-the-mill, common sense-like type arguments, and we need to use different arguments with different people. But these are the things that my party, Plaid Cymru, have consistently questioned. And I've brought this because it's been an extremely useful text. This is produced, of course, by CND, the Alternative Defence Review. A really well-referenced, well-expressed, coherent piece of documentation. So I just want to point to the 5 conclusions in this, because again, what I appreciate with that is it's more than just calling out our abhorrence. What it does is propose an alternative. And that's, again, as politicians, it's very easy to describe a problem. We have also to move into the area of what will we do? What are the alternatives that we are proposing? So a reduction or a redefinition of security expenditure. So ensuring that what qualifies as home security should include making sure that community cohesion is actually funded to really exist. That's part of security, that we demand a redefinition of what we are being told will actually make our lives more secure, and looking at the percentage of what is spent on that. Recognizing that the root causes of conflict, what they are, and the present and growing role of climate change in driving population movement, competition for land and resources, and therefore the need to implement international policies on climate change. With that, of course, we're hearing again these arguments from the US, from the UK government here. International aid is a bad thing. No, international aid is not a bad thing. It is not something we spend on to the exclusion of populations of people here in the UK who need that money. We are doing that to make the world a safer place in recognition of these challenges that are faced otherwise. Seek to maximise the UK's influence in securing resolution to existing conflicts. Recognise and work to neutralise the factors which create new regions of conflict, and prevent or halt arms sales to governments and organisations in active conflict or serious human rights violation. And alongside that, to call out the increasing securitisation of society and our economy. That, of course, the normalisation of somehow the arms-producing economy as being levelling up, calling that out for exactly what it is, the ineffectiveness, and also the, if you like, the rank cynicism of such a thing to say, finding ways of covering what is basically ugly and evil in decent terminology. No, we've got to unpick that and show it for what it is. So, of course, as I mentioned, the value of international aid. But finally, and I think, Kyoko, this is what I will take again from what you were talking about, and I suspect the other speakers will talk about as well. We have a duty to create an alternative narrative based on the principles of international law, human rights, and answerability. And these are broad, abstract terms. Now, for many of us, I like these terms. I think they are good things. I like to hear people talking about them. But for many people, they don't mean anything. We have to find the stories that will do that. Because, of course, these in the end, when we are talking globally, is what will save us as a human race. We will have to be able to restrain ourselves from doing everything which is in our power in order to make the world a safer place for you, for them, and ultimately for me. And we have to get these sorts of stories out. And this, of course, at a time worldwide where we have frightened populations enthralled to simple, strong man answers of a resurgent right-wing politics and the grip of social media's capacity for misinformation. So, yeah, it's a bit of a challenge, but we have to do it. We have to do it. So thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr iawn.